Hello, kia ora, g'day, I'm Philip Duncan from Weather Watch TV on YouTube with your Australia weather forecast for the next 7 days ahead, recorded on Friday, December the 5th. Let's have a look at the satellite imagery for today. Most of the wet weather and thunderstorms at the very top of the nation and along the southern coastline. A line of convergence basically coming from Western Australia right over to Victoria. So we've got a few thunderstorms that have formed this morning, passed by Melbourne and Adelaide, and we've got a few more coming in behind it all. I misspoke yesterday talking about the cooler change for Melbourne on one of your warmer days that you've had lately, but you might notice in the temperatures over the days ahead, those temperatures are down because you're going to be seeing more of a southerly flow coming through, and so the heat is going to slide up the eastern side of the nation, especially around New South Wales and going into Queensland over the next few days ahead. Here is the temperature map today. So that southerly change, you can see it here over the Great Australian Bight. The only parts of Australia on the mainland that are seeing those cooler temperatures, southern coastline of Western Australia, and around maybe a little bit here around parts of South Australia and going into Victoria, perhaps more so once that change has come through. Obviously Tassie, just like New Zealand, not feeling the same kind of heat as you can see here through the continent. And when you zoom out, that really just shows you what the daytime heating does over a dry continent by day, because here is the equator and you're not seeing that same heat up there. And that's because of all the water around it, all the ocean, which absorbs the heat. And then you've got the cloud buildups that you also get, big thunderstorm clouds. And in fact, you can see that line there where the temperatures are down through the mountains to the north of Australia. There's actually permanent ice on the top of some of those peaks all year round, and yet the equator is just nearby. But in Australia, you know, the basin shape of it and obviously the deserts help to really boost the temperatures up, and it just stands out at this snapshot during the later part of this afternoon. Here's Saturday's outlook. So the polar change coming back here to the south, between the hot weather pushing out into coastal parts of New South Wales, you've got this line of convergence. So we will still see a few showers and thunderstorms here and there through parts of Victoria, especially around the mountains, and still some parts of South Australia, while most of the showers ease in Western Australia. Showers and thunderstorms around the top end and the far north of Queensland, and then you've got that heat really pushing out because it's not only got that tropical energy to it, and it loses some of the humidity and moisture as it comes in, especially once it passes over the Great Dividing Range, but that whole process of going down the Great Dividing Range lifts the temperature up, and a windy nor'wester, gusty northwesterly winds can really help do that. So hot weather does push out to the east for a time, and then just further to the south there is the cold change. On Sunday, the cold change moving out to the east, moving away from Tassie. You got a westerly wind through there. Temperatures will be down a bit, as they will be around Victoria as well, and parts of South Australia, mostly just near the coastline. Once you're further inland, as that map just showed you, it doesn't really matter about those southerly changes in the south. 50, 100 k's inland, and you're back to the heat again. We also put the severe weather box up here because we may see a few severe thunderstorms coming through into parts of New South Wales as we go through Sunday. Small bit of low pressure nearby as well, just could add a bit of a strengthening wind to that northeasterly. Hot and humid in the southeast of Queensland, basically all of Queensland in that heat. But as you can see, the red line going northwards on Sunday means that some parts of New South Wales may just find it a little more refreshing as you go through the day. Not necessarily cold. The severe thunderstorm risk on Monday goes further northwards, goes into parts of Queensland, and this map shows the rainfall up until Monday afternoon. It doesn't show you what happens on Monday night, and I think we might see a lot more energy going further north of the Sunshine Coast. So that's why the box goes northwards beyond just what you see there with some of that heavy rain. Otherwise, the usual kind of thunderstorms popping up elsewhere. There may be a few more severe ones up around Darwin and Catherine. We didn't highlight that one as much. I tend to highlight things that are more sort of not in the norm of your everyday weather, whereas if you're up in the tropics, you know, thunderstorms are part of life, especially at this time of the year. Now notice the low up here to the northeast of Australia. Well, as we go to Tuesday, we highlight that because this is the area where we think we're going to be seeing this tropical depression deepen further and turn into a tropical cyclone by mid to later parts of next week. So hopefully that's as close as it gets to you. Sometimes if a low comes in and falls apart, a tropical cyclone, the rain can be useful if you need it. But otherwise, most of you probably don't need a tropical cyclone. So it's good to see it kind of pushing away from Australia at this stage anyway. A few thunderstorms left here around Queensland, the top end, and also a few coming into Western Australia. The red tropical boundary on Tuesday sinking further southwards again through New South Wales, South Australia and Western Australia, and with low pressure helping to sink that down and a wee bit of high pressure just sneaking into the coastal south, that puts the squeeze on those easterlies. So the easterly winds pick up from Victoria right across here over to Western Australia. They may be westerly for a time before we see a change happen. And on Wednesday, even more so of that easterly wind going right over here from the southeast corner of New South Wales and snaking all the way out to Perth. So that is the setup when you have low pressure all around the top 2/3 of Australia and this big high over not a big high, but a high over the Great Australian Bight. So varying wind flows, as you can see here around Tasmania, might be a little bit of low pressure nearby. So that just means winds are variable. They might pick up a little bit, a few clouds, the odd isolated shower, but nothing really substantial as far as a big rain event. But we do still see the risk of thunderstorms, possibly severe again on Wednesday, especially around New South Wales and through the outback of Western Australia. And the low up here to the north getting a little stronger. Look at the sea surface temperatures where that potential tropical cyclone is. Nearly 31 degrees. That's the sea surface temperature. So that is hot. That really does fuel a storm. When you've got low pressure in the right place for it, that can really help fire it up. So that's why this is the area that you could be seeing some pretty strong storms forming if you have low pressure in that zone. So by Thursday, the low, as you'll be noticing, drifting away from Queensland. Solomon Islands are affected by that. But the main risk here next week, and I don't put up a severe weather box when it's nearly a week away usually, unless there's very high confidence for it. But we are seeing, again, the chance of a severe thunderstorm outbreak in New South Wales here on Thursday, along with a gusty northeasterly or northerly. It's also going to be gusty through parts of Victoria, and then those winds fade out or fan out a wee bit as it moves westwards. But low pressure sinks in Western Australia. The red arrow just means that the heat is going southwards. That's not the wind direction. The wind direction is, actually it is here. It is a northeasterly, but it's going around like that. There's a small low in here. So it's sort of spinning around it, but it's pushing south. So in Perth, you'll feel that heat coming through Thursday of next week. And wherever you see the blue on the map, thunderstorms. Where you see the yellows and the greens, higher risk of a severe thunderstorm in the mix. And 1 week from now, next Friday, the heat still pushing southwards down to the coastline of South Australia and parts of Western Australia. So we'll see thunderstorms across Western Australia, maybe some heavier falls right on the southern coastline. Not as many thunderstorms in the Northern Territory. Queensland sees a few. The bigger ones are actually here on the edge of that tropical boundary. And once more, New South Wales could be having a couple of days in a row with severe thunderstorms or just some very big downpours and rain that are forming around there. So definitely a lot going on, even though not for everybody there's a huge amount, but as far as the whole nation is concerned, there are quite a few moving parts, and we're obviously tracking what might be happening with that tropical cyclone now pushing towards Vanuatu, New Caledonia. The tracking sees it going southeast, and because there's a really big anticyclone over the Tasman Sea, that is going to affect the tropical cyclone. They don't like each other, and tropical cyclones fall apart when they brush into or push into high pressure. So we'll be watching to see what happens as that storm comes into this sort of easterly belt around New Caledonia with that tropical cyclone. Before I go, let's have a look at your 7-day rainfall. So you can see these showers and the thunderstorms that are going to be developing along the eastern side. And then as we go into next week, you see the next lot of thunderstorms coming down into Western Australia for a time. But yeah, we're seeing thundery weather around the New South Wales area in particular, but also the southeast corner of Queensland. These are areas, obviously more population in them, and then the usual tropical downpours in the north, but looking a lot drier around South Australia and Victoria, but still a wee bit of rain in there, and it could be heavy for those that get it, but it's probably going to be a bit hit and miss. And for Tassie, apart from the northwest corner, most populated areas not really seeing much in the way of wet weather, but there could be a few showers that are heavy here and there. That is all from me for this week. Have a great weekend, the first weekend of December, lots of Christmas parades and things going on. So have a great time. I'll see you again on Monday.